Hello, welcome to Record Time. Record Time is a weekly Akashic experience where we explore simple and mysterious themes through the lens of the Akashic Records. My name is Mina, and I'm happy to be here with you today. Welcome to new friends, and welcome back to my old friends. I'm so glad to be gathered with you in this space, wherever we're meeting across time. If you're brand new and you don't know what the Akashic Records are, or you're curious about them, I invite you to check out my website, minaruchi.com. And there I have some videos explaining all about what the records are and what an Akashic Record reading is and what all of that really looks like. So that's a great place to begin if you're curious. But for right now, I invite you to just take a moment to arrive where you are. And if you're multitasking, please devote your attention to whatever else it is that you're doing. But if it's safe and if it's accessible, if it would feel good, you can close your eyes. Just let yourself land here and now. Maybe bringing your awareness to your breath. Not trying to change it, but just noticing how you're breathing right now. Noticing the quality of your breath. And seeing if there's a natural invitation there as you notice how you're breathing, to breathe in a way that's even more comfortable for you. You can continue to settle in as I tune into the records. Okay, so the records are sharing. One second. Okay, I had to clear my throat. So the records are sharing. Pleasure and rest are not always rewards. And this might get specific, I don't know, but let's dive into this. Pleasure and rest are not always rewards. And we'll just kind of dive into this one piece at a time. Pleasure and rest are not always rewards. Always rewards, the word always, they're not always rewards, implies that sometimes they are a reward. And I think what they're pointing to is the fact that laying down after a long day of satisfying exertion, right? Working at something, doing something, spending your energy, exerting your energy, and then getting to lie down at the end of the day, there is something very rewarding about that. And same with pleasure, doing something difficult and then feeling the pleasure of being done with it, or doing something difficult and then offering yourself a little reward afterwards. There's something, there's something to be said about that. I think that's a valid experience. And if that's the way that you function, right, doing something and then rewarding yourself, that's I'm not trying to invalidate that method of doing things and that kind of way of, getting things done. And yet they're saying pleasure and rest are not always rewards. And I want you to just like see how that lands for you. Like, what does that mean for you without any explanation? What does that, evoke for you? But it seems that it's really easy for, right? Oh, I did something difficult. I deserve a little treat. Like, that is a whole thing. And this whole idea, like, treat yourself, right? Whatever. It's like a whole thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. And same, like, it can be a slippery slope, though, where it's like, I only give myself a moment of pleasure if I've earned it. And that's really what they're getting at. So it's not that, like, you shouldn't do that, right? Giving yourself pleasure after doing something difficult. Sure, like, yes, do that. But don't make that the only way that you're allowed to experience pleasure. Don't force this, like, rule that does not exist upon yourself where I only get a treat if I earn it. I only get some pleasure if I earn it. I only get to rest if I earn it. And that's really where it devolves into a slippery slope. When rest becomes a reward, we're kind of entering murky waters where it gets a little scary and it can get out of hand really quickly. If you start treating rest, which is a necessary part of existence, everything in nature needs time to rest. If you start treating a necessity, just a biological necessity, as a reward, as something to be earned, it can get a little scary. It can get a little dangerous even. You can begin to harm your system if you do that. And even just like mentally, that's not a good place to be. And I'm saying this from experience. So I have like played with this towards the extreme end, probably not the most extreme like version of that, but I've used rest as a reward for a really long time in the past, and it gets out of hand really quickly. And same with pleasure. So it's like, it's okay to give yourself a little treat, or to like recognize the pleasure of simply like being complete with something difficult. Like, that is a pleasurable experience, to experience the relief of like, whew, that like big thing I didn't want to do. It was really difficult. It took a lot of energy or intention or whatever to get that done. It's over. That feels so good. Now I'm going to go do something else. Like, that is so valid and that's great. But again, it's like treating pleasure, engaging with pleasure only as a reward is where it can become problematic. And what they're saying is, when you start to treat pleasure and rest exclusively as rewards, you're delaying necessary care for yourself. When you treat pleasure as something you only get if you earn it, and rest as something you only get if you earn it, what you're actually doing is you're not rewarding yourself, you are delaying what is necessary to keep you alive and healthy. So these two things, we think of them sometimes as frivolous, right? It's like, oh, something to be earned, which means I don't need it. If you have to earn it, that means like, if it's a reward, if it's a treat, that means it's not a necessity. And the invitation here is to begin to look at these things, play with this perspective of like, what if pleasure was not a treat that I have to earn, but something that is vital to my own vitality, something that is essential to keep me alive and well. Same with rest, right? You can't really treat that as a reward. Like, you can feel the pleasure of like sleeping or laying down at the end of a long day of exertion, but to only rest after you've earned it, that's like, again, it's a slippery slope. And I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but this is it kind of takes a second to click if this is a new idea. So that's why I'm repeating it again and again. And yeah, these two things, they're essential to your well-being. And so again, if they are something that you only get, if you're treating them as non-essential, as treats or rewards, that means that you're not engaging with them potentially as consistent, essential parts of your existence, of a healthy, whole existence. And that's really all this is about. This is the invitation here. What if you could relate to pleasure as not something to be earned, but something that is as important as eating and sleeping and drinking water and breathing? What if pleasure was an essential thing? How would you engage with pleasure if it was an essential need and not just, it would be nice to have? How would you engage with rest if you really treated it as something that's an essential part of your well-being? And I know that not everyone has the bandwidth to really indulge in deep pleasure all the time, or sleep as much as they might want to. Maybe you have a kid, maybe you have a demanding job and you don't get as much rest as you really need, and you just don't have the bandwidth for that. And yet, in spite of all of these circumstances, where is there some wiggle room to treat these things as essential, as part of your needs, your wellness, the essential building blocks of being well, and not something that must be earned? Where can you not use these things as a way to delay your gratification or to reward yourself? What if this was something you could just give yourself just because it's necessary, and not withholding pleasure only as a reward, not withholding rest only as a reward or something you had to earn? The same way you wouldn't make yourself wait to drink water only if you've earned it. The same way you wouldn't make yourself only take a breath if you've earned it. What if we engage with these things as essential and see ourselves as worthy of them, no matter what we're doing, no matter whether or not we've earned it, no matter how hard we're working? I am always worthy of air and water and food and rest and pleasure. What if we thought of it that way? What would that be like? So that's the invitation for today. And really, inside this inquiry, inside this contemplation, I want you to understand that I'm not excluding people who are busy and don't have as much capacity or means to engage with pleasure. I'm not talking about a spa day. I'm talking about simple, accessible pleasures, whatever is accessible to you. That could be, pleasure could be as simple as smelling a candle, lighting a candle that smells good, using a perfume that smells nice, something pleasurable, something easy, simple, accessible. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to cost a ton of money. It doesn't have to cost any money. It could be looking at the sunset. So these things, really meet yourself where you're at and understand that these ideas, food, water, rest, pleasure, air, these are all things that we're all inherently worthy of. These should not be privileges, and I understand that many of these things are privileges, but can you engage with this as these things as, I'm inherently worthy of this. I don't have to earn it. What would that be like? Meet yourself where you're at and understand. I totally see the people that don't have access to these things. But where is there a little bit of room? Maybe, if it's possible, can you engage with it a little bit more? Not as a reward, but as something that you're inherently worthy of. Okay, that's where I'm going to leave you for today. I'd love to know how this landed for you. If this resonated with you, feel free to leave a comment or send me a message and share your thoughts. And I'm wishing you well until next time. Namaste.